Well, hello, everybody, and those of you online. This is our Armbrust Hill Playground meeting. And we have with us tonight Terry DeWan and Eamonn Hutton of VIEWSHED Landscape Architects, who are going to be helping us think of what we might want to design for everything here. So I'm Kay Kendrick. And I'm on the Parks Commission. Each one of us on the Parks Commission has a park we adopt, and Armbrust Hill is my park. So Debbie Pixley used to be the steward of the park, and she's passed it on to me. So on the Parks Commission, we had talked about how the playground there really could use an upgrade, refurbishment. A number of years ago, we talked about that, and Patience Trainer, who was our physical therapist, said, "Oh, I often use the playground equipment for my therapy patients." And we were like, "Wow, wouldn't that be cool if we could combine those two things?" And then the Land Trust was talking about making accessible trails, and we realized that the playground trail that goes out towards the overlook of Indian Creek was quite level and could be a good thing. So thus the collaboration between all three things. So we're really excited about doing this project together. And this is just, we're right at the starting point, and this is to get ideas. Yeah. Terry has all kinds of pictures of things, and
it's important to keep in mind, this is what, if this is the Department of Transportation meeting, this would be called a blank plan hearing. We literally have come with not a blank plan, but here is the medical center, here's the park over here, and as you see, there's the only thing that's on the drawing right now, the photograph, are the existing playground facilities. We have not thought of anything about where things should be. What we're going to be showing you tonight are just some ideas. These are not necessarily our recommendations. This is just to explore things which maybe might be appropriate here, maybe not. But we're going to need to hear from as many people as possible. In fact, there was a slide there. It says, what would you like to see here? Now, there's obviously a lot of things that are out there right now, and we spent the better part of the afternoon walking about 5 miles of the trails, well, a few less maybe. And so it was certainly my and Eamonn's first introduction to the hill. But for people who have been here longer than us, of course, you know it really well. But we want to find out, what do you think is going to be, what's going to fit here? So with that, we've assembled a bunch of slides. I've been doing a lot of traveling recently as a landscape architect. We design outdoor spaces, and we design parks and playgrounds as well as a lot of other things. But this is a real strong interest of ours. We love to engage communities. We love to see things change to the better. But what's going to be appropriate here? I think that's really the key. So
they won't be able to see it. Maybe you can put your cursor.
Oh yeah, okay.
So
here's the medical center. Oh, can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and here's the playground area generally in through here. Here's the merry-go-round here. Here's the slide. Here are the 2 wooden boats. I'm having a hard time picking out the swings, which I think are right there. But it's in a fairly small, concentrated area. But the truth is, everybody knows the area fairly well. Okay, so we don't need. Okay, do you want to talk a little bit about the 4 parcels?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So I should do this with your cursor.
Well, I'll do this,
Okay.
and you gesticulate.
The original park that Betty Roberts, it was this lot here. In 1960, she bought and gave to the town. And then also in 1960, this is the medical center property. Then the next spot to be added was this parcel in I think it was 79. This is where the playground is. And then this last one in pink didn't get added until 1987. That was the one that the Land Trust raised the funds for and then passed to the town. The reason this is in pink was this parcel has deed restrictions on it. So there can't be a lot of cutting, no structures. you know, you can maintain trails and that sort of thing, but we have to be cognizant of this boundary that we don't go into there. But most of where we're concentrating on is here. And I believe this is Charlie Pond at the bottom of the overlook with the pipe. So, you know, we may possibly want to talk about this area some, but mostly we're going to be talking about right up in here.
Okay, so the first thing we did today was to go see what's out there. This is new to us. We wanted to see what the Owen Webster Memorial Playground looked like. We walked around, we saw playground equipment that's been there for a long time. People that were with us talked about bringing their kids there. And you know, everybody agreed there's some good equipment there. People love, I remember things like this when I was a kid. And I don't know the story of the two wooden boats that were there. Maybe somebody here could general light on that.
Bodine Ames, she was very active in the park commission for that. She wanted those.
Bodine.
And had them installed.
Okay. Yeah.
There's actually an old spinner there that they removed for safety for the second. When I was a child in the 80s, you know, 80s and 90s, they removed that and brought those in, I would say in the 90s.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Must have been.
if it was early 2000s, that's probably late, but
Yeah.
there was an old piece of equipment, those got brought in, I didn't know Bodine was behind that, but they've been there a while. They've probably
Yeah.
seen their lifetime, they're probably not safe anymore.
I don't see any note, anybody saying, oh, we gotta keep them there. And there was a time, maybe 25, 30 years ago, there were a lot of playgrounds built around Maine that were done by community groups. I know we built one in Yarmouth, it was fantastic. Did you help on that?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, and they lasted for 10 years or so, and then takes a lot of maintenance and a lot of splitters and so forth. So, yeah, it's good to look at these things and to evaluate it with a real eye towards play value, maintenance, and lifetime expectancy out of it.
Thematically, I love it as both. I mean, there's something nice about that.
Yeah.
Kids playing on both.
Well, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Management play.
But
Like
does it have to
management
be, does it have to be a boat? I think one of the things behind playground design is that you don't necessarily have to make into a spaceship or a boat. It should be maybe an enclosure or a structure that the kids can use their own imagination to make whatever they want to out of it. You know, that's one approach.
Yeah.
The other approach might be, hey, you know, we live here on an island and a lot of fishing goes on, let's do it that way. But, you know, we're not here to promote any one particular way of looking at this. And of course,
You do not have to, if you want to show them.
oh yeah. You want me to go back and,
Big ideas.
okay, well, we hope we came with a lot of ideas. And, you know, as we're looking at, you know, what could go on here, you know, yeah, I know when we talk about designing sites, we talk about looking at the site itself. We also talk about looking at the neighborhood around it, which in this case, of course, is the rest of the park, but we also talk about the community as a whole. And so when you talk about the community as a whole, you think about, well, what other recreation, other playgrounds are here on the island? We talked about the neighborhood or the community adjacent to this. Well, you have the medical center, you have the pond here, you have incredible trail systems, you have the quarries, obviously. How do those existing things influence what we're talking about today relative to the playground? And you know, and somebody we went here today, and someone says, no, yeah, maybe there'd rather be a gathering place or an amphitheater or some place that takes some big rocks and making some place where we can do stuff, hold concerts, or you know, apparently there's been some concerts here in the past. We've heard about that. And,
Yeah.
but,
Outer space band.
yeah. But anyway, you know, we just put those out there is that, you know, we're starting at a point where we can envision the future. There's a lot of raw building material here, which is really cool. You know, most towns would die to have big pieces of granite like this. What do you do with them? And then, we're talking about the next door neighbor, of course, the medical center. If this place is going to attract more people, where do they park? Does the medical center need more parking right now? Is there room to expand parking? What happens at that interface between the park and the playground and the medical center? There's been some discussion about therapeutic gardening or therapeutic trails, or just the ways use parts of the park and the playground as part of the treatment facility, which is a wonderful concept. You don't see that very often in the United States. We'll see a book in it, I found in a moment that it's something that we're starting to talk about. To me, it's really exciting.
They did one in Ellsworth, Maine, so we can certainly do one here.
Okay, well. So I'm just about there. So then the question one always has to ask, what are the ground rules? Strictly safety standpoint, there's the public playground safety handbook by the United States, Consumer Product Safety Commission. They're the ones that deal with how playgrounds get built, how they're done safely, fall zones, the space around facilities, type of material that you have, maximum heights, and then they break it down to age appropriate equipment. Toddlers, which are up to this high, preschool, which are 2 to 5 years of age before they get into serious schooling, and then grade school 5 to 12. And you'll see some examples of playgrounds in other places that have used that, primarily the 2 to 5 and the 5 to 12 areas. And preschoolers, have they want to look at things that offer climbing opportunities, merry-go-rounds, ramps, run ladders, spring rockers, stairways, swings, and so forth. Once you get into a higher age range, then you're looking for things which are a little bit more adventurous, but probably very safe. And which brings me to the next slide. This has just been published, Letting Play Bloom, by a landscape architect who teaches or used to teach at Temple University outside of Philadelphia. The subtitle is Designing Nature-Based Risky Play for Children. Now, that itself says volumes about an approach that says, well, to me, what does it mean to you? Let me turn that question around. Is that something that you think we ought to be engaging in as we have this discussion? What does risky play mean?
Sounds like fun.
Risky to me, it means that it shouldn't be that you have to do this. It means that you're going to be encouraging kids to go out on the proverbial limb, for example. Nothing that's going to be so dangerous as to get a broken arm out of it, but you're able to learn your own limits. You're able to interact with other kids. You're able to experience movement in a way that you might not ordinarily. Anyway, I just ordered this book. It's just published, and I'm really hoping it comes in the next couple of days. But I would encourage people to look at this book, or at least that's an approach, to think about what the future of this place could be. One of the things that the author has done is looked at 5 different playgrounds, both in Europe and in the United States, and I haven't seen it yet, so I can't say what's going to be in it. But I'm just fascinated by the whole concept. And then last but certainly not least, is this whole notion about designing playgrounds for seniors, senior-friendly parks. And we first heard about this in an earlier conversation we had. And again, thank you, Google. I typed in senior play apparatus, some term that you had given us, and I came with this publication. It was just recently done by one of the School of Public Affairs at UCLA. Again, it uses a lot of case studies from mostly China and Europe. And I'd like to think that they're applicable here. There's a lot of guidelines. How do you design a place that's for a certain age population that might not feel comfortable being on a playground with young kids and noisy, a lot of activities, but still we want to encourage them to be outside, to do things which have therapeutic value as well as exercise and socialization. How do you do that? And is there enough room? Is there enough relatively flat room on the site, and we think that there is. If you look at this topo map right here, after we're done looking at this, you know, there are places where we could probably do something. The next slide is an illustration from this book. And again, this is just one of, you know, hundreds of illustrations that senior playground area in Hyde Park, which I think is in England, by the Landscape Agency. But what it is a site plan for a bunch of different activities. They're all geared towards older people. I must say, you know, I just turned 76 the other day, and I don't consider myself to be old. However, one of the things about this publication, they break people down by age category, and I'm supposedly a category they call old. And that's sort of insulting, but that's neither here nor there. I love being outside. Kay's a wonderful leader. So anyway, these are the sort of ideas that I think we'd like to bring back to the community, and certainly working with you and other people at the center. Is this what we had in mind? You know, and there are a lot of pictures of equipment and ways to use found objects and other things which you could probably purchase or construct to make something. We need to have a lot of discussion though. But I was really.
My Taylor's here. Taylor's our physical therapist.
Oh, we heard about you, yeah. Have you seen this book and its publication?
I haven't, no.
Have you heard about the whole concept of playgrounds for seniors?
Yeah, I talked with Patience a little bit about it. She was the PT before me. She gave me some ideas, and I did a little bit of research myself.
Okay.
So I was wondering about, because a lot of those types of equipment have a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
So how would that be something that would work out here as far as maintenance?
That's an excellent question. Is that again, this is just one example. It's also interesting to see, if you look real carefully, I don't think anybody on who is in those photographs would be classified as a senior. Most of them look like they're in the 30s and 40s. They're just models they hide. I know. That's a really good question. Yeah, but how do we take our climate into consideration? Because I'm assuming that you're going to want something that's going to be at least usable 9 months out of the year, if not 12 months out of the year.
Yeah, no, but I think it's interesting too, that doesn't have to be moving parts. And like you talk about, you know, balance can be step up, step down on a piece of granite. I mean, I think there are a lot of discussions to be had about getting the same use out of different materials. So
right.
To me, I think, yeah, there's a lot of exploration to do, but the more natural to the landscape, I feel like, you know, bringing in a lot of funny looking equipment and populating a beautiful park, but really natural sort of approaches. Yeah.
And the other thing is, I always like to think about programming in flexibility. So it should be a piece or a place that's only used for one type of activity. It'd be nice to think that there's a lot of things you can do here. I know I go to physical therapists quite a bit for a number of reasons. I'm always amazed at how they use their space for any number of different types of injuries or people in different situations.
And right now we're using the parking lot.
Oh, yeah, that's
So,
not.
you know, it would be nice to move it out of the parking lot.
Well, that raises a really good question, though. Does it have to be paved? Does it have to be wheelchair accessible? Should it be grass? Should it be sand? Should it be wood chips? Should it be enclosed? Should it be separated from the playground? Should it be on the trail or off the trail? Should it be within sight of the building, so people know that if they have a problem, they can easily get there?
Can it be designed so it can be intergenerational, so that you mix older people with younger people? Is there a way to, you know, it's like, that's also a compelling question.
Well, yeah, I find these to be really fascinating topics. And when we do these sort of things, we tend to say, well, here's the different types of uses. We'll draw bubbles around them, and then how do the bubbles relate to each other? Are there conflicts that means you should avoid them? Are there synergies that means they should be next to each other? Are there some areas we just don't care? It doesn't really matter where they go. So anyway, so think about all those sort of things as we think about what are we going to call this? Therapeutic garden, or anyway.
Terry, the other thing you had pointed out about that drawing is that it looks like it's a little bit screened from the rest of the area.
Yeah.
In case you felt self-conscious about using the equipment out in front of everybody, right?
Yeah,
What you were talking about earlier.
yeah, this is labeled as a courtyard right here, this is existing toddler equipment, here's a bowling, I don't know where if there's a building here, there's a pavilion over here, but all this looks like vegetation that then screens people. This has spaces for benches to be positioned in groups close to equipment, safety surface, spray and chip surface treatment, low boundary fence, gates, that doesn't have to be closed off at night. And if it's part of the park, does that mean that you don't have exclusive use of it? Anyway, there's, I wouldn't think so, but these are all things to consider. Anyway. So here's the wish list. Now, maybe I don't need to even show this right now, but just think about, what would you like to see out there? We already talked about, playground equipment or play apparatus or play structures, therapeutic structures, pathways. Anything else that we need to think about? You don't need to answer it right now. Oh, that's in the back there.
Okay, I'm gonna do this because I've got a tiny brain and I've been thinking about this for over a year. I was gonna do a fundraiser to raise money to just change the structures up there that you were talking
Yeah.
about, the wooden ones that are unsafe for the kids anymore. They're just falling to bits, splinters, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think that we should get rid of any of the metal parts of the playground because they are like legacy pieces of the playground. Like I played on them when I was a child, and I'm not even gonna tell you how long ago that was.
Solid too.
Yeah, and
Solid.
they definitely need
Yeah.
to be maintenance, they need to be painted. And I spoke with some people over in Rockport about changing the wooden structures because I know the kids love the ship. So I talked to them and they said that they would be on board if we did a fundraiser to buy a new structure. We would just have to pay for, the materials and to have it shipped out here. Obviously, it's gonna cost a bit of money to get it out here. As far as up by the frog pond, which I'm not sure what we're calling that on the map, but the frog pond that's at the bottom of, I feel like that field is completely wasted. We don't have a dog park on Vinalhaven. I'm not saying that we need a dog park per se, but if you're talking about therapeutic stuff for elderly people, young people, us, our age, all of us are young people. I think that is a really therapeutic thing anyhow, for to have some benches up there, to be able to, sit and, play with the dogs, because most of our dogs on Vinalhaven are, pretty popular and lovely. But I just think that I just feel that if we focus on fixing up that area, making it as it was before, but also to clean it up. There's some lovely little trails that even go out around in that area, that are just little, there's a little alcove, when you go
Yeah,
down.
we were there today. Yeah.
And it's it's another wasted spot that they could do something amazing with, and I love the idea of making, so the other idea I had, sorry, tiny brain, so I'm gonna just puke this out as quick as I can, is repurposing materials on Vinalhaven. And one of the things that I looked at was you were talking about having interactive things. Well, I was looking at tire structures, where they take old tires that are not used. VIEWSHED have them. They said that they would be more than willing to donate. Arthur Warren has a whole bunch of them, all in good shape, but not you can't put them on a car anymore. But so I was looking at some kind of almost what do you call it, a climbing structure that's not too high, it's not terribly dangerous for the children, is interactive, and also if a kid falls down a tire structure type thing, they're not gonna get hurt too bad, or whatever. And then I just think that there's a lot of
there's a lot of maintenance that could be done. But also, like, I know that, like, there are structures that need to be replaced, but I hope to God that nobody wants, like, the metal structures, like, slide, which I slid on, like, okay, fine, 50 years ago almost. And like all of that, like, I just hope that that stays, that we can, but we can repurpose materials from Vinalhaven. Like you said, like granite, make benches, whatever. There's like a ton of like, you know, stuff that we can repurpose that people just have sitting in their yards, you know? I was thinking about like a sandbox, which nobody wants to do a sandbox because cats poop in the sandbox. But I was thinking if we did like, you know, there's a few people with some flat bottom skiffs that we could like turn into sandboxes and then use, you know, old, not old, but like netting from like the seams to just cover them up and have a way to roll them off so that the cats don't go to the toilet in them. And then
You're gonna be seeing a few slides of my my kids and my grandkids here, that's okay. Nature-based play is, you know, something, you know, as a theme that we may want to consider, or you may want to consider. This is my granddaughter who lived with us during the pandemic, and she loved going outside and then climbing rocks and jumping off of boulders and cemeteries. These are all things that really excited her, and she's just thrived in this sort of environment. And certainly there's a lot of opportunities here. How did that gets translated, though, is, you know, part of the discussion. In addition to providing, you know, places for kids to play, you know, usually parents go along with the kids, and there should be places for families or parents to sit, relax. You know, what should those look like? You know, this is just a very, very basic sort of do-it-yourself bench kit here. This is in Vinalhaven. Where is this located?
The overlook thing.
Overlook, yep. Which I thought was just really marvelous. There's a lot of personality to this. You know, this is on the same wall we did. Yeah, very simple. On the other hand, you know, this happens to be on Booth Bay. These are carved pieces of granite with a circular bench, which is very appropriate for this particular location. A swing. This is again something which you may not have thought about. I'm not even sure if it would be appropriate here, but the fact that you can have a couple of people on enjoying the movement at the same time could be a nice addition. So, any thoughts about, you know, this whole notion of benches, places to sit and relax? I think we've already heard, you know, places for people to sit. Probably a good thing, especially if there's places with views that can be opened up.
It's, for those of us who use the space constantly, the challenges are the things that immediately come to mind. So that open area has a lot of holes because it's got a lot of granite. So there's a lot of tripping hazards, as you guys saw. It's also very wet. And I also think that in the pond, we're unable to sort of bleach it or dredge it because of I know what I suggest that I would want to, but the reality is that it's full of mosquitoes, and so it, for many months out of the year, it dramatically impacts sort of the usability of that space.
Yeah.
And so there are times where I'm like, is this the best place to put places to fit, or is this the best place to put places to put this? So I guess like there's a part of me that's immediately like, I think a lot of us know and love those spaces a ton, and would love to sort of like I know I mentioned to be like, let's talk about that space. Like, let's talk about that space specifically and say, like what are the like are we talking a $4 million budget? Are we talking a $40,000 spruce up? Are we talking about a phase spruce up? Yeah, and are we talking about a phase spruce up? So what could be the thing that would be most exciting for people first? Or like as we all have these conversations, like I'm actually just genuinely excited to hear what everyone has to say about that space that they love.
I love that. I'd like to have one of those.
I'll comment from.
This happens to be on Peaks Island, you know, around this actual pool for the deaf there, and it's just a wonderful place for people to stop and enjoy the view. It's low cost entertainment here.
As long as we can guide the children up to the peak up there, like, just don't think that that's a good.
What you just said, it's low cost entertainment, like, I think seating, you can't like overdo seating. And I get what Craig's saying, like, and I'm with Craig, I wanna know, like, do you have this big budget and we can have like wish list of everything? Or like, exactly, is it just gonna be worth sprucing things up? But I was on the playground committee for the school. And I was trying to look up, I don't even know what year we got that going, if it was 19, maybe 2019. But that was a lot of work and a lot of research and a lot of heart went into that, so, and like, we have several benches, and it's not enough. So, like, on the topic of seating, it's low cost, low stakes to just find it wherever you can. It's natural, if it's a bench here and there, like, I think you really can't overdo that, in my opinion. I've walked like all sorts of trails in New Hampshire and Maine with my family, like every kid, even kids, it's like fun to go like find a bench and sit, like, I mean, so I think you can't overdo that.
Yeah,
I have lots of thoughts on other things and I can't wait till I
okay.
have my turn to. I happily didn't throw it all up, but
Yeah, related to that, I remember a couple of years ago, we were working for some project and somebody said, you know, as a general rule, especially when you deal with an older population, there should be a bench every 300 to 500 feet.
yeah, correct, I agree.
Yeah, it's like the life of the football field. Oh, I'm tired, let's rest again.
It doesn't matter if there's a bottom sitting in it all the time, like it's there, and
Yeah.
for whoever needs it at the time, and it's low cost.
Comment,
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Listening land here.
From Brooke Conway.
Oh, Brooke's on, she's on Zoom.
Okay, yes. There are
I've
two
got her
people.
comment. I'll read it out.
Okay,
A playground that covers / has equipment for all ages. From toddler all the way up through elderly, so anyone can use it. Yes, we have a playground at the school for preschool and for preschool students and teenagers. However, that equipment cannot be used when school's in session. Also, having equipment such as a swing that's handicap accessible is a good idea as well.
Yeah.
Along with having a trail that is handicap accessible so anyone can go on the trails. Maintenance of the area is something that needs to be looked at as well, as there are several times this past year where the trails and play area had very tall grass and ticks are awful on the beach. Fine. I like the idea of trying to keep it as natural looking as we can.
Talking about intergenerational. And I agree with Kay, that was a powerful picture for me, seeing the two on the swing together. We have a 3-year-old, and he is completely benefiting from, a lot of our neighbors. Our parents don't live close by, and he learns so much from the people of all different ages. He's really the only 3-year-old, over there, but, he gains so much from every single adult he's interacting with. And to know that we have the privilege and luck to live so close, that to know that I could bring him up to the playground and bring one of our neighbors safely for the next 50 years, that love interacting with her. And so for me, I think I love hearing from Taylor and what your ideas are going to be, because if you can also be getting, as a senior, safe exercise and staying healthy while my 3-year-old is learning how to safely do that as well, it would be so powerful.
Yeah. What age group do you think the existing playground equipment caters to?
Oh my
goodness.
It's done.
We're going to the dangerous player. So. You're gonna go up to the dangerous player?
That was like that playing with risk thing.
Yeah, the risky play.
When Kelly was in my
Yeah,
School age,
But
not-
it-
there's not like pre-K age, so.
But I think it's important too that we tell people that we do plan to have a stewardship fund, or money set aside that we're gonna have to use on an annual basis for upkeep, and like the land trust does with their trails.
Yeah.
We definitely will need to have that.
somebody has been corresponding with Kay about the possibility of having a gathering place. After all, you know, there's a lot of stuff.
Spots, so like if there's a spot that currently has a playground, that would probably be a lot easier to install versus overhauling that entire. I mean, that, I love that area, it's one of my favorite areas in this entire island, but there are just holes in the granite. And there's a stagnant pond, and so like those two challenges are things that are, I think from a budgetary standpoint, difficult.
Yeah.
Also, the entryways from both sides get very, very wet, and so we bring in like tons and tons of gravel or sure pack in order to make access. And then by requirement, if it's ADA accessible, it has to be paved, right? can't be just.
It's not
Why
gonna
don't,
be
we're not
weird.
talking, everybody, some of this, we're not talking
Yeah,
ADA
yeah,
accessible,
exactly.
just more accessible. I want to counter your stagnant pond.
Yeah.
Because that's one of.
But you're bringing up a really strong point here. Before we do any site design like this, we normally do what is called a site analysis. Where the steep areas, where the flat areas, where the places where, you know, you don't want to walk because there's holes there, you're gonna fall in. Are there places that are wet, you know, Kate was talking today about all the ice that forms. But before we do anything, we need to know a fair amount of detail by the people in this room, you know, where are the places where you want to do something, where are the places to avoid it.
I would only,
No, I like,
You love it.
I love like every idea you said, so I'm just like, I don't wanna get excited about this and then have like a fraction of it, but I think this gathering place idea is amazing. I think that frog pond area, like, I hear what you're saying about the mosquitoes, but I think people are more protective of that frog pond than the slide. But like, but I can just see like, even if you just get a couple rows, like similar to this, it might not be this great big amphitheater. I mean, does anyone know the Camden Library Amphitheater? It's amazing.
The Bach
I took my
Amphitheater.
kids there and someone was doing a yoga class, like, what a perfect spot it would be for something like that. And it, you know, yeah, maybe the mosquitoes are bad and people are like, I'm not gonna pick that
They
place.
only like Craig.
But it's like, I, during the pandemic, it wrecked kinder music. I went to Lane's Island. I had to schlep all my stuff, all that big walkway. And I didn't even think of going up there. I mean, I think it hasn't been mowed, like exactly what Brooke said, like you've got to mow it and, you know, prevent the ticks or like get it treated, like get Charlie Simpson up there.
Yeah, I think Charlie,
But like,
can do the
an area
mosquito
like that, I could have my little kinder music outside, like there could be the story time, Pam Kittredge. She's not here, but she hosts that, it's amazing, but it's right on the road, like you would have to agree. Not like the perfect place to do that, with the traffic going by, like how nice would that be to have story time up there in the summer, like. I think a gathering outdoor place would be.
I put this in here just to stir conversation. Anybody know where this is? It's a coastal Maine botanical garden, and it's just a place where people can, you know, trace their finger around, especially this is in the garden of 5 senses, for people who may be blind, who want to interact with their own environment. It's a phenomenal little piece. Again, same way here. This is my mother, who was, I think, 86 at the time. She's since passed away, but she loved going out here. It's just a hole in a big slab of granite. Got enough of that around here. Can somebody drill holes like this?
We have 2 stone artists on island, the stonemasons guild, there's 4 guys with a giant mill, they can cut any rock to any shape or any size at any
Wow.
time.
It's-
Is it down?
Well, anyway, but have you ever put your head in a hole like this?
Yeah.
It's a really cool experience.
your mother down there.
That's my mother, yeah. That's Mary Jane, yeah. And she had such a wonderful time. You all know who this is, but
No, I've never seen that.
yeah, I actually, I went to the Common Ground Festival this year for the first time in many years, and there was something very much like that at the entranceway. Again, Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens, they've taken these big boulders and they've carved whale heads out of it, and there's water spouts coming out of it. Again, it's a playful way that says, man, this is a place for kids to really enjoy themselves. And, you know, if there's artists on the island, I'm sure there are, you know, what would the local artists do about with big boulders or big square cut pieces of granite? I don't need time to know where that is, Andre, and, oh, I'm the steward for our local land trust next door to our house, and these alligators, or maybe it's a doggigator, it's like a doggy face. This one appeared a couple of years ago, and then a couple of days ago, I was out, and there's a smaller one that is getting burned. But they're kind of funny and funky in a way, but they say to people, I really care about this place. Is this something which is, well, we have this discussion in the land trust, do we allow this sort of stuff? Everybody thinks it's really great, but it gets to a point where there's too much of it. But anyway, I think that's sort of a good problem to have. You know, the garden club was very active. Anybody remember Marge Peterson, Andrew Peterson? Yeah, I stayed at her house several years. I was a lecturer in the garden club. She was the one that actually got me involved in this. And, you know, I know she was very involved in various projects out here. And so and this is some of the beautiful old sketches that we found from years ago. But that's the question, you know, do we continue that tradition of putting garden areas out here or just some planting? Or is that something which should be left to somebody else? Pathways and trails, this is, to me, is one of the more interesting parts of that. We have walked at least half of them today, I think, or at least.
More than that.
Yeah, and where is this? Oh, this is a part of
This
today.
is the playground trail. It goes from the playground to over to.
To the, our land trust has something called Trail Crew, and they meet every Wednesday to do projects. And last winter, we built a footbridge over a little stream. And it was a fantastic way to get people together.
Let them in. Thank you,
Oh.
but they're undecided on.
They're building a footbridge over a small stream. We had it looked like a ladder across the stream. It's terribly decrepit and dangerous. And so, yeah, we actually had a quote for about $25,000 to build this. And we ended up spending about $5,000 or $6,000 just because, you know, there's a lot of committed people who are willing to source materials and then the volunteer labor, you know, really helps in the cost. But
Not fine, I hate them.
no. But I put this in here saying that there's a lot of different ways to approach trails. You know, one of it is, you know, to look at maintenance.
I have a question real quick.
Yeah.
Are we bound by a lot of legalities with what you're doing? Like, if you, like, I don't know, I guess that's the question.
Well,
If you're doing ramps like that, yeah, then does it have to be ADA or,
well,
if
in
you
our,
put equipment in, you've got to abide by certain
Yeah.
safety procedures and making sure you have the wood chip base or whatever, you know.
in our
school.
particular case, we went by the building inspector and he, you know, looked at the design and said, yep, it meets code.
Like, if it's a town park, like, does it abide by the same? It has to be different than like school procedures and guidelines and.
Well, it's something that may be determined by the grant sources that some of the grants may require,
Okay,
may have requirements.
I understand that someone might not know the answer to that 100% right now, but
That's
it's
a
a question.
good question.
It's an excellent question. Yeah.
So when we were talking about more developing a more accessible trail, we're specifically talking about the playground trail. Certainly as far as the overlook, the Indian Creek is fairly flat and level and wide, probably all the way down to here. And then this certainly is, you slope down here and then up again there. But the rest of this is pretty good. So whether all of this could be a loop or maybe do loop there and come back. So the next step Terry was gonna show you
Yeah.
was specifically for this pretty flat part.
I would say the only thing that really needs to be done up there is the overhangs, because there are some widow makers up there that I'm surprised that somebody hasn't like got hurt.
Well, some,
Just a lot of overhang, but I
Yeah.
mean, as far as the trails go, they're lovely, wide, well maintained. But most people don't have a ladder that they can go out there and just like cut down the overhanging branches.
well, people use the term accessible trails. And what does that mean? Does it mean ADA accessible? Well, let me show you a couple. Here's the overlook.
The overlook.
Yeah. There's and I don't, there's a group in Turner, Maine called Off the Beaten Path, OBP. And we've worked with them in a number of projects recently. They're a group of people that have amazing small scale equipment that do trail planning and construction. And what's nice about them, I'm going to read this. We pride ourselves in minimizing our impacts and covering our tracks so that when we step off a job, the work appears it has been there for years. The process of restoration, rehabilitation, and naturalization is as important to us as the work itself. And this is an example of the trail that they did. I know that Kay received a comment from somebody who said, well, you know, making trails more accessible means that they have to bring in bigger equipment with, you know, a lot of bulldozers and so on and so forth. Well, again, let me click to the next slide here. This is an example of their work, and you can see the scale of the equipment that they use. You know, they literally work within a couple of feet of the actual trail itself. You know, whether that's an open field or next to a small stream that on the upper right there. They also are really experienced at moving large rocks around by hoisting and a variety of different equipment. They work all over Maine, all over the eastern United States. They also work down in Patagonia during the summertime. Here's some examples of their equipment and some examples of the work that they do. So I show these not because I'm necessarily saying you need to hire these people, but there are people out there who specialize in trail construction, especially in really dangerous or even awkward or very environmentally sensitive areas. They've done an amazing amount of work in these sort of situations.
Terry, we got a question in the back?
Oh,
Yeah.
question? No, sorry, yeah.
I was just gonna make a note on this part. I think this is a very high priority, no matter the length of the accessible
Yeah,
loop. I taught first and second grade for 11 years, and I organized a lot of hikes through the land trust. They sponsored
yeah,
amazing leaders from Tanglewood to come out. And when presented with the issue of children in wheelchairs, it really throws a loop for, what we can provide to them, and their program often gets so amended, and they really can't do, unless you have a chaperone or an ed tech that can backpack them. It really presents a big problem, that they can't be included fully. And so I'm going with the second grade tomorrow to Armbrust Hill, not because of that need, but just for bus mostly. And I'm excited about it to see it again, but I just think the school would be really appreciative to have something that would be an accessible trail for children to use even, I totally agree with the elderly, like with everyone who needs an accessible trail. I think this is a high priority.
yeah. And keep in mind, we're not talking about paved trails here.
No, totally understand.
Yeah, personally, I think paved trails would not be the right thing here.
No,
There's
but just accessible, more flat, you can,
compacted gravel,
Yeah.
so a person in a wheelchair could roll over.
or some sort of, a lot of them have either a stroller, like for
Or walker,
school
yeah,
age kids, it's a stroller or a, off-road.
right.
They have a lot of tools to help, but many of the land trust trails, they can only go in a certain length and then you're.
Probably just like not understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's
It's
not
the
a fault
nature-
of anyone.
No, it's the nature of Vinalhaven.
but-
This is why I was so excited when I
Yeah,
got this trail last year.
I just
said,
think
this could be made more
super-
accessible.
Good.
Okay.
Amazing.
All right, moving right along. We're finally getting to playgrounds, and I have a bunch of slides on various types of playgrounds that we've found around various places in the United States. This happens to be in Freeport, at the desert of Maine. People have totally redone the whole desert of Maine, and they have this whole big playground with moose as the center point. This to me is I put this in the same category as the ships that are out there. Playground, it looks really good now. I kind of wonder though, how's it gonna hold up in years to come? But it's a really interesting concept. This is at the Children's Museum of Maine in Portland, a nice looking structure. I don't know what the maintenance requirements are, but it looks like it's built to last. But it's designed for kids that are probably in that, 5 to 7 year range, would you say?
I know that's what
I
all
don't know if it's city works or not. But it could be, yeah, yeah. And then, now, the next ones, I just show you as an example of what places that obviously have a lot more resources, but tell me if there are ideas here that you like, okay? I'm not saying that we should be doing these sort of things. This is a Maggie Daley Park in Chicago, built over a parking garage. The surface here is that poured rubberized material that you may be familiar with. Did you use that in the
I'm
playground?
really sorry, I was making a note of the last
No.
slide about a piece.
They went with-
Are you saying composite versus wood? What was your?
Oh, my question was, this particular playground is all that poured rubber material.
We wanted it, it was gonna add another 6 figures. And it doesn't have that long of a lifespan. It has to be replaced, and you don't patch it, you replace it like 15 years. So
Yeah, well,
as
that's,
lovely as it is, it's a big dollar.
Yeah.
We couldn't.
well, again, that's part of the thinking, needs to go into that, life cycle costing.
You guys are gravel, right?
We're wood, we talked about the rubber,
Yeah.
with it getting flipped into the soccer field, we just
Yeah.
thought wood was the best choice.
Again, you know, this is built over a parking garage, and what to build the hills here, they use styrofoam blocks. And then they put the dirt on top of that, it's because it was lightweight, because they had load restrictions, but fabulous design.
I
Yeah,
love the lighthouse
yeah,
in Wales.
and the
Well, I
whale,
like that
yeah,
too.
yeah, I
It's
know.
really cool.
This is a place I just visited last week when I was in San Francisco, attending a conference out there. There's actually a highway underneath this park. And that's why it's called Tunnel Top. It's close to the Presidio, if anybody knows San Francisco, it's near the Golden Gate Bridge. And the highlight, to me at least, was this mountain of granite boulders. And I thought it was really cool. Here's my son and little Phineas. He's a year and a half. Now, I've never seen a concrete slide before, but it seems like it works pretty well. Again, I think these are mostly wood chips here. You can see how they rounded off the edges, so it makes it a little bit safer. There's a tunnel that was built in, a lot of rocks. They're somewhat similar to the rocks we have in Vinalhaven here. I think they round a little bit more. They're really big into water play. Again, I'm not suggesting that this be done here because it requires a source of water and purification, so on and so forth. But what's nice about this, at least from this illustration, it shows that, you know, parents and adults, parents and kids can work together in some aspects of the playground. I didn't see this one as being particularly exciting. There's another water feature in the middle of the big sandbox. They must not have any camps around here. So,
They're back in though, I think people are willing to risk it.
well,
People, sandbox is.
I
great
noticed that
sensory
Stanley
play.
was a predominant material out here. Yeah,
Sandbox is
sand
great.
and big boulders and big old timbers, which didn't seem like it'd be holding up real well. But that case said, well, this is great. If it's a nice dry environment like San Francisco has, but what around here? Should we even consider things like that? Or, and here's again, the same park, they found a huge old, I don't know if it was a redwood or not, but you know, it has great play value. That's something to consider. This is sort of a take on a swing where a bunch of kids can swing back and forth like this. And then this jumbo collection of big logs. It's interesting to see most of the kids here are probably in that 2 to 5 range. I would have thought there'd be more older kids here. It was the time of day we were there. They had this really funky piece of artwork here. I'm not sure what that is. Because there's a foundation that oversees this place, they were able to hire an artist to do chalk paintings, and then here's little Phineas, hard at work on chalk. How's that?
Hit that button again.
Does anybody know?
Yeah.
Owls?
A little bit of alley.
Well, it was on.
Oh, we're back.
You got it back?
on mute.
Okay.
Okay,
I can hear you now. Okay,
okay.
thanks, George.
We see climbing walls, quite a few places. Is this something which might be appropriate here? And if so, should it be made out of wood? Should it be built into the side of a wall. There's a lot of different ways, but I guess the question is, are climbing walls something which we ought to be considering as part of this?
They have the clip.
Recently went to the Cannon Rockport Middle School, which I think they call it an inclusive playground. It's awesome. It's a good mix between like using the natural landscape. They have rock wall, they have a climbing wall, like kids climb up, and then the built-in slide, and but then they have some commercial equipment that's just high play value.
Yeah.
Like I really see there being opportunity for a nice mix.
Okay, I'm glad you say that. We'll stop there on the way back. Okay,
So I said like climbing walls are very popular.
but what's really, I don't know if you can read it, but there's a sign right here. You know what this says? It says no climbing. But I think what they mean is they don't want kids climbing like this, and that's the reason that the tops of the logs are angled that way. Yeah,
First place they would go.
Oh, and I'd say you anticipate kids using things the not intended use. That's just what kids do.
oh, yeah.
They're gonna find, like, you've got the blue safety bars that enclose them in on the school equipment. They're climbing around.
It's a
Like,
talent.
It's just what kids do.
Yeah.
They're looking for the not intended use.
Okay, here's the question. What do you think this is?
Or internal, also,
Well, it's a dry river, I think. We don't know for sure, but I think it's part of the stormwater management. If you direct stormwater in here, then it infiltrates into the ground. But it certainly has a certain amount of play value. Again, little Finn and Kristen learning how to walk. It's really tough to walk out. And I thought it was a cool thing. Again, I'm not saying this is what we ought to think about here, but it's interesting to use found materials like someone suggested before and repurpose them in a way that visually it's very attractive, just because it's a really beautiful texture. Brooklyn Bridge Park is a new park in Brooklyn. And now we're starting to get into the more commercial equipment, okay? And this one doesn't have many or any of the nature-based things I showed you recently, but I showed you these just as an example of, the stuff which is available through catalogs, through manufacturers. It has a lot of play value, as you mentioned, but it requires, they're fairly expensive to begin with. A lot of them are fairly maintenance-free. These are
what the floor is there. It's not that molded rubber. It looks like it comes in squares.
It looks like other tiles that are
So
the rubberized tiles.
easier to
think about
replace.
those?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Um,
So, yeah, you might have come across them in that project, but they're an alternative to poured in place. It's the same, it does the same job. It's like flooring tiles that you put in. The good thing is if one blows out, you replace that one.
Yeah, these have been in place now for, I'd say, 6 or 7 years. You can see there's some wear marks on them, but I didn't see any that need to be replaced at this point. There's a lot of variety in this playground. Here's one. This is the playground that seems to be designed for that 2 to 5 year old group. Just because of the scale of equipment, there's like 15 of these little play stations here. And this one, the kids seem to play by themselves. There's not an awful lot of interaction between individual elements here. And they're also stationary. I would love to see that car, to be moved around, but I don't think that's in the program. And again, this is a different playground within the same park, has a much different feel to it. Artificial logs and a really nice little house right there. But with benches for parents to sit down. This looks like it's a poured rubber surface. And one interesting thing about the Brooklyn Bridge Park is the fact that they've used old granite blocks for retaining walls or sitting walls, or on the bottom right there, almost like a small scale stage with just a few kids could watch somebody else make fools of themselves or whatever. And then this is, you see these in a lot of playgrounds. You talk in one, there's a similar thing on the other end. You can communicate on telephone. And picnic tables, should there be picnic tables out there? There's one out there now, yeah. and a little gathering spot. These are all made out of precast concrete forms. So it's almost like a big flower petal. It's kind of cool. And then another whole approach to playgrounds, and here we're starting to get into what you might call the Cadillac or the Rolls Royce of playground equipment. These are customized pieces of equipment. You know, the big bear on the left and a little bear family here. And it starts off with a sketch like this. This is actually the piece of equipment that's going to go down to a new playground in Mississippi that was just on display in San Francisco. And they have a lot of play value. You can enter down here, you can climb up, you can look out at an upper level here. They're rather remarkable. I would ask how much they cost. Yeah, we're talking serious 6 digits here. And again, another, you start to see a lot of these in various places around the world. Some of these are made in Germany, some are made in Canada, and then shipped over to the United States or wherever. This is American Society of Landscape Architects has an annual meeting. They have people that sell any sort of outdoor equipment there. And this is the only group that I saw had what you would remotely consider to be therapeutic. And
That's pretty ugly.
Yeah.
yeah,
I've seen much better.
It didn't look really inviting.
No.
No, but I just put it out here just to say, maybe this is what we don't want to see here. And that's why I was really excited to see that other book.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's going to be required reading for this group, at least the people interested in that component of it. I just wanted to show you there that so that we haven't forgotten about that. And then finally, a bunch of play structures. Again, these come in any sorts of colors and forms and themes and materials and experiences, slides, the climbers, and they look like spaceships or flower pods. And is this something which we think might be appropriate here?
That's where your dollars will be. If you go in that direction, you're looking at 6 figures. So I think finding pieces is your better bet, but I mean, I would love taking my kids to that.
Yeah.
$100.
Yeah.
It's an interesting debate between statement pieces and the beautiful nature that already exists. Like, I mean, it's like, I think that there's probably some room for some of that balance, but it's everyone, those are neat.
Well, okay, let me,
Ask the kids.
Yeah.
We do
So-
have that, in the community, like we do have structures at the school. So like if this is a little different, I think people would appreciate it.
okay, well, let me show you some of these actually in place. After I got back from San Francisco, we turned around, went to New York City to see another grandchild. And this is a playground that has both a part that has play equipment for both the 2 to 5 year old and the older group. This is the 2 to 5 group, right? And I maybe somebody could tell me what these things are.
That you could, that's first grade.
Well, I know, but is that for a 2 to 5 year old?
For anybody.
Well, I suppose, but the sign on it that says it's been designed for children 2 to 5 years old. And it requires user to have sufficient strength and coordination, and adult supervision is required.
That's that risky play.
Well, is that risky now?
I don't exactly know what horse strength it is, how high up it is, or, I mean, was it low down?
No, little kids look like
Yeah.
that.
For Taylor to write a thesis on like kids and their core strength, like kids these days, they're doing this.
Yeah.
And they're not out
They're
playing
not
and
doing
balancing
this.
and,
Yeah,
and doing this. I mean,
And that
all
forces them to put the
You do wanna
iPad down.
consider equipment that's gonna get bang for your buck and like build core strength. I mean, like climbers, spinners, swings. Like there's definitely pieces of equipment, and I'm excited that Taylor's here because like having someone who can kind of point you in that direction. The play value and the,
if we were to have to prioritize between this age group and an older age group, should we be going in this direction or the other direction?
the other direction, you
But
could-
by the other direction, I mean the older group.
You could find pieces that aren't as expensive, like more simplistic things, is my guess. The very first slide you had where you said the old people are not in the pictures.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they were using equipment, I've seen them on trails, you know, here and there. Like, it might just be like a fitness trail and you stop every now and then, and it may just be as simple as like 3 steps that are elevated and
Yeah.
you're going up and down. Like, those can't have as high a cost value. I mean, they're gonna be 5 figures, they're gonna be 4 figures, but not, you know, 6 figures. Like, I think you could get those sort of things that would be beneficial for Taylor or any, you know, person in upper generation to get some use out of it. And it's not gonna be the same cost center as these.
Yeah.
these Structures that.
When we think about our population too, we have an aging population on this island, like, we have only 17 kids in the preschool maybe, or in this current class, how we can
You're
range.
gonna have a little block. It's a 4-year-old, but it's a little, but
You know, that they came to have no park that they can walk in, like, I mean, that number is like, I think the balance on our island is skewing towards people 50+ who need safe places to.
Yeah.
use it.
Yeah.
But the pre-K students don't have a playground that's used during the day, because they can't use the school. Granted, some of them are IBC.
But I feel like I wouldn't want to be forced to make a decision between which one, because I think by being judicious with the materials, and I'm a fan of keeping more natural. But I think about even in Elder Park, when you think about balancing on a thick and clean, log, or stepping up 3 granite steps and down 3 granite steps, or doing push-ups on a standing piece of granite. I feel like there's a way to sort of not spend a ton of money on equipment,
Yeah.
keep an aesthetic, and do it all.
You set
I'm
a
off
bar.
the
Yeah.
Well,
Right,
we
let's-
also have to think about the space we have, it's not huge. So we'll have to be very careful on
Yeah.
the playground. And
Well, that's what I'm wondering, is if you pick a structure, are you going to have to, like, if it's a town park, do you have to abide by like the buffer zones? Like, they're gonna say, you need this safety, you can't have the swings
Yeah.
within this many feet of this equipment, like, or we're not gonna have the warranty, there's rules about that stuff, so, like, exactly what Pam said, like, there's only so much room, and if you start thinking too big, you're gonna fill up the space awful quick. too,
Yeah.
And not allow for multi-generational use.
Just to answer it, because it came up earlier, the town will have to adhere to those,
I would assume.
all heights and all
Right.
distances.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wood chips have to be a certain
Yeah.
depth, like, I mean, you get pretty.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of regulations, yeah, and there are funding sources, and, like, we've already, or they've already started to make some contact with people at the state, and, I'm sure that those sort of funds come with the requirement that you adhere to the standards. Anyway, we're just about done here. Again, these are some examples of other parks that we've seen around. Again, some designed for, fairly small kids, like this one right here. And this one's.
So, actually, don't.
That's my,
It's exciting.
that's my granddaughter, yeah. No. Okay, and Kay took this picture recently.
So
Yeah.
this was in a park in San Francisco, and this is a spinning thing. But what I liked about it is that if kids were worried about falling off, they could be inside the netted part, not be scared. But the kids on the outside, there were lots of places to grab onto for the, running and keeping it going. And then if you were adventuresome, you could climb on the outside, and while it's spinning, it was really exciting. But you could also climb up, and where that sort of ring is, there's like a crow's nest, and there was a door where you could get inside at that upper level. Let's get one of those. I thought this was very popular, and I just thought it was a spinny thing, but it seemed safer and a lot more interactive than just like the one that's up there. I thought it was really cool. Yeah. It was cool.
Yeah, sorry, I keep trying to, but I've like lived this, I have a 5 and a 7-year-old, and I've lived this for like And I taught young kids, so I'm like, so invested in all this. I love a piece of equipment like that, huge, super high play value, like you can get so many kids in there.
Yeah.
Different ages, exactly, like one can nestle in, and except I'm gonna have a downside to it, but. We have a thing like this at the school, like it's super popular, like you get lots of kids on it, it's popular, the spinning, the climbing, it's all like super high play value. My sister has one of these that are, there's so many nice playgrounds, in Waltham, Mass. And it gets gummy and sticky, so like it is a maintenance question, it's awesome as a piece of, like, just the spinning will be, you can just tell there's resistance, and it
Yeah.
doesn't spin like super, either needs to be oiled or something.
Yeah.
So there is that maintenance.
What do they do with COVID? Do they cleanse it down then every day?
So I think that was the talks for a while, like you'll have to do that, and then, no, it wasn't surface.
Spray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They debunked the surface issue. But
Okay.
that's a super piece of equipment, but I have experience like, oh, this isn't as fun when it's not spinning, you know?
I think this is the last slide that we have.
This is also in San Francisco in Dolores Park. They have this is brand new. They just refurbished this area. It had just opened maybe within the last year. So just an example of a different boat. Doesn't look like our boats, but you know.
And composite. I was like, when Kelly was speaking, I wanted to, I didn't want to crush her dreams, but like, if Cedarworks was who she was talking with, which is a gas, beautiful equipment, lovely, but you're not gonna have lasting power, that stuff. You need composite, metal, anything, like it's just gonna last so much longer.
Yeah.
Those splinters, I removed a lot, I covered up a lot of splinters in my day. We couldn't pick them out, but I guess that's a sad statement.
All right, we said we've done by 8. It's 5 minutes or 10 minutes of. You've been great. This has been fantastic discussion so far. Where do we lead from here? I think we've heard an awful lot of various opinions. I think that we've heard that nature-based play is going to be a big priority. We probably ought to be looking at things like the spinner, because it has a lot of high play value. We're going to be very concerned about cost and about maintenance. We have to be very cautious about not over programming or overworking a fairly limited area. There's things that we ought to be considering in terms of the trails, the possibility of a gathering place. What else that ought to go into this? The therapeutic aspect of it, I think that requires a lot more research about location and types of experience and integration versus separation.
You know, one thing we haven't talked about is parking.
Parking,
Parking
yes.
at the medical center.
Okay.
Already
You wanna
very,
talk
very
about
tight,
parking?
and so they're.
Yeah, we- I
need to
mean,
find additional
yeah.
parking.
And we already have parking issues, so making a wonderful park that's multi-generational is a big draw, which means there will be more cars,
Yep.
so we have to deal with, because that's patient parking, that's not staff parking. The area that's impacted is strictly patient parking right now, so we would need
How
to,
many more parking spaces do you need?
as a staff,
Well, 10 would make the medical center like.
not just
most
staff,
functional.
10 overall.
We did 10 overall up there, would make ours more functional, but I think if we added a playground, we'd be talking more like trying to get 12, 15.
You have a lot of walking traffic though too. You do.
Oh, it's true. I mean, if part of the budget addressed maybe a more, beautiful walk up to the campus, I think that could potentially help.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Because right at that center, so if they came up, there's beautiful rocks there that if you built steps and railings and you could walk up rock faces and through campus.
Right now, where people walk, we've had two elderly people fall. Yeah, there's a
Really?
little cut through with it's a path.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an informal path, but it's well used, and we've had 2 people slip and fall there.
Oh, under that apple tree, yeah.
Yeah, and also that corner by the sandbar. I mean, people will park by the swap shop, that corner by the sandbar, it can be a little challenging to cross the road there.
That downtown plan is happening like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
that's not even gonna cover this.
No.
situation.
But if I were, looking at that, even if there was some sort of extension back of one more row, like a row that was for the park, and the ICMS parking for ICMS would be,
Okay.
I think you asked what we wanted,
Well,
go for 15.
But
But
that,
if we're being like very, reasonable, I would just say that saying it would be nice if there was parking for the park. And then leave those other parking spaces for the patients.
yes, but that's the beauty of doing this master plan,
Yeah.
this is, if we. Look to the future, where might all these things go, and do we have room for all these things? And
Well,
anyway,
and money, and I think the other thing is, someone brought up, was it you, Craig, about the phased approach, but I also think like. There might be a very different pool of money for a senior park, for a medical center than for a playground, and so maybe looking at them as, if we don't get one magnanimous large grant or donor, looking at them as sort of individual grants could also be a way to go, is sort of.
speaking of grants, are there people on the island that would like to have a facility named after them, say an amphitheater?
I think there are people on the island who will be very generous if they get behind something, but it's making, it's getting them behind it.
Well, that's,
I think what I've been told, and I'm not the right person, I think, to ask, but if they believe in the cause, the generosity is untold.
yeah. And that, we found that to be true in Costa Mesa Botanical Gardens.
Yeah.
People digging way into their pockets to do things. This one gentleman had a wife who was blind, and they decided to fund one of these gardens, the Gardens of the Five Senses.
That's beautiful.
It's a beautiful place.
We were told there was so much grant money when we were building the school playground. We were told, all the medical, like if we have some aspect of health and wellness in our community, and like, we just got nowhere, I think mostly because it was a school. But I mean, that's not my skill set, but I'm sure there's someone's skill set out there to find grants too.
And the collaboration, I think, is what we talk about, is being really powerful, is how often do you see a medical center, a land trust in a town, line up.
Yeah, the school just kind of didn't ever get that. We didn't get any.
Yeah.
But it is a school, it wasn't the best fit either. This is a great.
And I just want to point out that, this phase one, for Terry to be here, be doing this initial stuff, the land trust has already committed the money to pay for phase one. So,
And Kay's already made contact with people at the state who are very excited about at least coming out and
yeah,
doing an initial evaluation.
yeah, Black, yeah.
Well, do you have any closing thoughts? Anybody else want to?
Well, I would love my other collaborators, if they've got anything to say besides me.
I would say thank you, ICMS, nice representation. I have a lot of bodies here. Taylor, Brooke on the phone, great guys. I'm glad that you're interested and excited, and I'm thankful for the folks that showed up. Great feedback from the school. That was really, good. The voice experience.
Yeah.
No, I want to just say thank you. I was brilliant. Very excited.
We're working on it.
People are happy if it's not taxpayer funded, so no one's gonna balk at it. If you want taxpayer dollars, that's when you're gonna have pushback.
Yeah.
Correct.